All right, this week's lesson is on symbiosis and then keystone species. I'm going to try and make this short and sweet and just give you the little hints and clues to help you know which type of symbiosis is occurring. So symbiosis is when you have two different organisms. They have to both be organisms. You can't have non-living things here that are supporting each other in a close and permanent relationship, meaning that this is always happening. This isn't a once and done deal and then it never happens. This has to be every single species of that species always has this relationship with this other species all the time, and it has to be for survival. And then there's three different kinds of this that are always occurring. So there's commensalism, which is when one species benefits and then the other is not affected. And we're going to use a +-0 to represent that. Plus for the organism that's benefiting, and 0 for the organism that is having a neutral effect. It could either, it doesn't care that the other organism is there. Mutualism is when both species benefit. Both species are getting something out of the relationship, a positive out of the relationship. Parasitism is when one species benefits and the other is harmed but not killed. If the other species was killed, that'd be predator-prey. Predator-prey is not symbiosis because one of the creatures dies. And if one of the creatures dies, then this relationship ceases to exist. So symbiosis is when both creatures have to continue to live, okay? And with parasitism, you have a host. And the host is the organism that isn't killed, but could be harmed, but not to death. Because if it's to death, then the other organism dies too. And this is for survival. So you want both organisms to survive. So the first one here is... Okay, sorry, I got sidetracked here. So, commensalism is the first type of symbiosis that we are going to look at, and it's when one species benefits and the other is not affected. So you have a +-0. So the plus is for the organism that is benefiting, and the 0 is for the organism that could care less or is just kind of chilling. I usually say that to my class. Commensalism, C for chillin'. So you got your shark, who's just chilling, and you got your remora, who's getting a free ride. Remora benefits, and the shark could care less. They don't harm each other. The shark isn't gaining anything, and the shark isn't being harmed. The other example of something for the commensalism would be like cows with these egrets. The egrets are always near the cows. It can be other organisms egrets are near. Cows attract flies, and then the egrets come in and eat the flies. The cows could care less. Yes, flies could cause harm to the cow, but it's very, very rare. It's more of just an annoyance, okay? And so the egret's getting a meal, and the cow could care less, but the cow's the one who has the flies around it. The next type of symbiosis is mutualism, where both species benefit. An example of this is the moray eel and then the cleaner fish. The cleaner fish is getting a meal off the teeth, and the moray eel is getting its teeth cleaned. Plus. Food for one, and a clean mouth, which is not going to have germs and disease, for the other. The other example would be any kind of insect or bird and a flower with pollination. The flower gets pollinated and gets to reproduce, and the insect or bird gets food through nectar or through pollen, and they have a symbiotic relationship, mutualism. A mutual relationship, usually both people agree to. A mutual decision, both people agree to. So it's a plus, mutual, plus. The other kind of symbiosis, the last kind, is parasitism. Parasitism is when you have one species benefiting and the other is harmed. A big example of this is going to be parasites, okay? Parasites don't usually kill the host. They could just have it cause an issue and harm. Ticks on anything are a parasitic relationship. Ticks are getting food in the form of blood. The frog is potentially getting disease, but is giving the tick food. Ticks cannot live without warm-blooded animals. Elephantitis, which is a virus which can cause inflamed cellulitis, even a bacteria, can live in a human being. It doesn't necessarily kill you, but in order for that organism to live, it needs an organism to infect. Usually we'd go to the hospital or the doctor before it got this bad, okay? I think you get that. You'd feel warm tissue and you would go to the doctor. Parasites don't usually kill the host because then they themselves are going to die. The other examples for parasitism can be like heartworms and fleas and lice. Mosquitoes are big parasitism, okay, because they can cause disease, but they don't usually kill the host. Now, the other flip side of this is going to be keystone species. Keystone species are critical, just like the keystone is critical in an archway. The keystone species is critical in its food web, food chain. So what happens when keystone species are removed? Everything falls apart. So a shark is a keystone species. They're apex predators. They feed on rays. If they are not there, the rays overpopulate, and when the rays overpopulate, they eat all of the bivalves and arthropods, and then you're left with very unstable populations of your producers and your primary consumers, and then when you don't have these, everything else, these guys run out of food, and then everyone dies. Okay, so again, remove the keystone species here, everything dies. A sea otter is another example of a keystone species. They feed on sea urchins. When the sea urchins, if they're gone, the sea urchins overpopulate. When the sea urchins overpopulate, they kill the kelp. Kelp is a producer. We learned last week when you get rid of the producers, you don't only get rid of the energy for the whole food chain, food web, but you also get rid of the oxygen, which is going to kill off other organisms. And so that collapses the whole ecosystem. This week you learned about a couple other keystone species. Okay, all right,